And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Friday, February 24th. I am Josh Engleman, and I'm joined by someone that I actually want to talk to today, unlike Laffy or Adam on my normal days. It's actually going to be a good morning for me and a much better morning for most people as well. Rinpack in the house. You had him for the deeper dive last night. You get him for the strategy show this morning because Adam is still out with syphilis or chlamydia or whatever he picked up in Savannah. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Our handles are below our heads and names, I believe. Ryan, what's up?
No, coming off that first day back from the All-Star break, which is nice just to get under the belt. Didn't like my results DFS-wise. Had a nice day in the props section, but It is what it is. Here we are on a Friday slate and a bunch of fresh teams coming off the All-Star break. Should be fun to talk about. More importantly, the return of Russ.
I know. Ugh. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Sounds like we had similar nights. DFS wasn't great. Went 4-0 on no house advantage with the free square at Ja Morant. Went 4-0 on PrizePicks and lost out on the potential 5-0 when Fred VanVleet was randomly scratched late. So perfect cards yesterday. Hope you were tailing those videos. They'll be out a little bit later. We'll talk about them in a bit. Just a really ridiculous slate. When that Portland news dropped yesterday, it changed everything. Literally everything. Everything changed. And that wasn't fun.
Yeah, no, it wasn't fun. I definitely felt like reading into it, I was like, I didn't know what the starting lineup was looking like. And then there was the update in the starting lineup. And I was like, looking back at it, I'm pretty content with the number of shots Shaedon Sharpe put up and just not content with that fantasy point production that he had. But I was in the DraftKings contest, I was pretty content like having 3 Portland players locked in. I barely do that in DFS.
Yeah.
I chose the 3 players to locked in. 2 of them were good. Reddish and Mr. Little. I definitely took my chances there, but Shaedon Sharpe just didn't pan out, and you definitely didn't need him last night.
Yeah. When I was watching the shows and everything, and once all that news broke, I didn't totally understand the Keon Johnson ownership. I just wasn't seeing where those minutes were going to come. I didn't expect him to start either. Like, obviously, if he started, you were just going to let that rip. So I was actually really light on him even heading into lock. I only had about 20%. So I mostly let that roll. But then once they announced, I was shocked that they didn't start Sharpe. I really just don't get it. If you're not willing to let him do that on a day like yesterday, where you're just like, you know what we'll do? We'll play the 350th best guy in the NBA. Like, I get if you're just trying to punt the game, but it just felt like a real weird allocation of resources.
Yeah, the one thing about Sharpe, it doesn't matter a game like that if he's a true point guard or facilitator whatsoever. Right. He doesn't have that in his game yet. He's just super athletically gifted, and he can get a bucket. And I guess the other side of it makes sense why they threw in Arcidiacono, just like a true can run the offense the way maybe Billups wants him to run it for that type of game. But they should have started Sharpe. It would have bbeen nice. Yeah, and likewise with the Keon Johnson ownership, I didn't think he was going to start either. It's just another situation where if the way DFS is there's so many projection sites and projection sites move the markets, and there's one site that just rolls out Keon Johnson like that. And some people do, other projection sites might be tailing that, and that might just be leading to inflated ownership. He still found a way to get there, which is just it did bother me, but hey, they were shorthanded. It can happen.
Yeah, I obviously when the news broke, I grabbed all the data from everywhere else, like I assume most of us do, and a couple spots went straight to 30 minutes on Keon Johnson, and I was just like, man, I don't maybe, but they don't play this dude.
No, I do think a lot of that was a lot of the data is obviously based on previous results, right? In the last year, Keon Johnson had those results, and that's when other guys didn't exist on the team. Reddish wasn't on the team. Nasir Little wasn't on the team. And I think Nasir Little can be a back-end rotation guy. I do think he's more talented than Keon Johnson for sure.
Yeah.
And we know Reddish can get a bucket, but that's about it.
Yeah, I was a little surprised when I started running everything, and it was just gross. That team was just nasty. I actually took a shot on Kevin Knox last night. I was like, oh, maybe he's the guy that falls into minutes, and it doesn't seem like anybody's going that way. Yeah, he didn't. He played 3 minutes.
Yeah, he still couldn't crack that rotation last night.
No. Which doesn't surprise. Look, when you get a gigantic group of dudes that don't belong on the NBA floor for generally, then I'm willing to take some shots on Maybe it's that guy for today instead of Jabari Walker or one of the other random dudes, but it just wasn't. It didn't make a difference anyway. But, you needed Little for sure. Cam Reddish was certainly going to help you out, but we're on to a new one. 8-game slate for today. It's an interesting looking slate. Pricing's different than it was yesterday. We got a couple teams on back-to-backs. I took a lap through this one this morning for the process show, but now we're going to do it again. You ready to get this started?
Let's do it.
Okay, well, before we get it started, I'm going to fix the game time. You know what? It doesn't even matter if they're in the wrong order. They're on the side of the screen. I grab the basketball reference schedule like months in advance. It's just in my Excel sheet, so I don't have to grab it every single morning for updating my stuff. And sometimes the game times change, and I have the Bulls Nets game as a 10 o'clock start from basketball reference from whenever they put that in there. It's not a 10 o'clock start. It's an 8 o'clock start. So that one's going to be out of order. To anybody that's going to have a problem with that as we move forward, you're going to have to deal with it for the next hour. The games are on the side. You'll figure it out. New York Knicks, 1-point dogs in Washington, 224 total. I feel like the Knicks are one of the easier teams in the league to talk about. They really don't deviate from the script all that much. We do have one minor wrinkle here, but I find it to be largely irrelevant. Mitchell Robinson is questionable. He's been practicing. It's a thumb injury. Doesn't strike me as the type of thing where you're going to be like truly questionable. I think he's probably known he was going to play this game for a week or two at this point. So my assumption is Mitchell Robinson is going to move back into the starting spot that he had previously. The amount of minutes that he plays is up in the air because I think that's kind of relevant at 5,200. But when you look at the Knicks right now, do you see anybody that jumps out? Do you see anything that you really want to get to? Because this team is just, it's like DFS death.
Yeah, and they're kind of priced appropriately. It seems like when I was gone, the Knicks team has been balling out. Jalen Brunson's priced near 9K on DraftKings, 8,400 on FanDuel. And Randall's kind of stayed the same. It's been kind of the Brunson show over there. I think he's priced appropriately. I have no lean in one way or the other. Probably will be falling around the field if the slate were to start now. But I like maybe taking some chances on a sub 6K Barrett at 5,700. I think that he's getting double-digit projected ownership right now. The team grades out much better on FanDuel. If you want to take some chances there, their price points just are much better. I think the Knicks on FanDuel look a lot better than they do on DraftKings. And Brunson looks appropriately priced, and I think you can definitely take some chances over him on Yahoo. And yeah, keep an eye on the Robinson news. If Robinson were to start, I don't mind taking some chances at 5,200. I don't think he'll be that popular. He's coming back from a lower body injury, right?
Broken thumb.
Oh, then I think he should be fine.
Yeah.
I think he should be good to go. And it wouldn't shock me if he plays high 20s minutes. And we know Mitchell Robinson can rack up an impressive fantasy outcome where at 5,200, you'll certainly be content with a 30-plus fantasy point performance. And I think he has that in this type of game environment against Washington.
Yeah, I gave him 26 minutes. I gave Hartenstein the other 22. I think Mitchell Robinson is live to get up to 30 or 32. Like he's not, the only barrier is his physical conditioning. And with a broken thumb, like it shouldn't be all that far off. I think he gets back up to that 30-minute. I mean, he was playing like 32, 34 minutes a game in competitive matchups before he broke his thumb. I think he gets back there. He's probably going to be a little underpriced once he does. But for now, there's just that little bit. I mean, he's not going to be owned at all. But there's that little bit of maybe he needs to play one game and like get back to game speed before it happens because he's been out for about a month. But this Knicks team, man, like I'm tired of going back to RJ Barrett. I don't get that guy right ever. And now there's Josh Hart. It makes it even worse.
Yeah, and I'm curious on what consistently the closing lineup looks like for this Knicks team. My guess it's going to be a lot of Brunson, Hart, Barrett, Randall, Robinson is probably the closing lineup. Maybe sometimes Randall closes in at the 5 and they slot in another wing potentially. What's your best guess on the closing lineup consistently down the stretch for this Knicks team?
So obviously Brunson and Randall are just in stone. Like no one is taking them out barring injury or foul trouble. Feels pretty safe to say that it's Mitchell Robinson, at least based on what we saw before. So that leaves 2 spots for Barrett, Hart, Quickly, Grimes. I guess if I'm ranking those guys, it's probably that might be the order: Barrett, Hart, Quickly, Grimes at this point. Like if you need scoring, I don't know, like none of these guys. I guess you put Barrett out there. Defensively, you probably go to a little bit more Quickly. I think so much of it is going to be matchup based at this point. and you're sort of just like cutting Quentin Grimes and like hoping you get 2 of the 3 correct.
Yeah, and I do think we might see like a price correction on Josh Hart if his minutes stay a little bit low. But I do think down the stretch, I do think those minutes could go up just because
Agreed.
of what Thibodeau likes from a player. And I think Hart checks a lot of those boxes. So we'll see what happens with Josh Hart's minutes down the stretch here.
Let's get away from this New York Knicks team. We'll go to Washington, where I don't think we have a ton more to talk about. We do have a Q tag on Bradley Beal, which it's very interesting to see coming out of an all-star break. You just like, today's not the day you're supposed to be questionable, but it is Bradley Beal, and he's already starting to clamor in the media for a trade. So kudos to him for getting the 5-year bag and then now trying to get out. There's no ownership coming into anybody here. Kyle Kuzma's at 7%, which seems about right. Beal's at 4%. Porzingis is 9,500. They've got 27 guards now to try to sift through. They just converted Jordan Goodwin to a full contract, and he's not even going to be a part of the rotation. Do you find anything appealing from the Washington Wizards today?
You can certainly take some chances on Beal if you play sub-8 Beal. He's just not been the same player. He's a different price tag on FanDuel, $9,300, which is crazy to look at. It seems like Bradley Beal of 2 years ago, only 20.
I was just going to say, do they get a time machine?
Yeah, it's like they went back to 2019, it feels like. But Bradley Beal, if you want to take some chances on him, no issues. Kuzma, this seems just different when Bradley Beal's in versus Bradley Beal's out. If Bradley Beal's out, I'll have a lot more interest in Kuzma and Porzingis for sure. That's really about it. No one else is that interesting on this team at all. I'm sure maybe by the time the slate's over, certainly one guy can be really good, but even there, it's super thin. Like, could it be Denny Avdia? It just feels like better options on the slate where there's 14 other teams to look at. And man, also Johnny Davis has to be the worst lottery pick of this year, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's a way around it. I mean, I would not be surprised at all if they don't pick up his 3rd-year option. And I would not be surprised if that dude is playing in a different country in the next 3 years.
He's still in the G League, right? And he's not been able to do anything there.
Actually, he is with the team. He is not even in the G League right now.
Oh, okay. Because I earlier in the season, apparently he was struggling in the G League, and like if you're struggling there, I don't know.
I mean, he's probably going to have to go to like slam ball or something at this point because he's got nothing left. It's bad. It's a complete. Look, no one liked that pick at the time. It was pilloried across the industry, and it's not looking any better. It's somehow looking worse.
No, that's awful. This team has like no future if Bradley Beal wants out. Like, I mean, Kuzma's probably going to sign somewhere else.
As weird as it sounds, like if they can get some sort of stupid package from some team for Beal, like get out of that deal as fast as you possibly. It's your only path to relevancy.
Yeah. If they can get like these insane packages, if they can get a Rudy Gobert-esque package for Bradley Beal, that's probably not going to happen. But even if you get 75% of like a Gobert package, I think that
can you get a DeJounte Murray package? Because that's still really good for the Wizards.
What was the Murray package? It was like 3 or 4 first round picks.
I want to say that it was. I think they control 4 straight drafts
and some pick swaps
of Atlanta. It's like it's either 2 picks, 2 swaps, or 3 picks and 2 swaps, something in that. It's not the full 7. It's a little bit less. But I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think the summary information here for the first game is that you're probably not going to have a lot of exposure coming into it.
Yeah.
We keep it moving. Next game, Cleveland Cavaliers on a back-to-back 1-point dogs in Atlanta, 225 total. This is a very interesting one to me. I'm curious to get your thoughts here. We don't have much that we can do with Cleveland. Looks like Ricky Rubio is going to play in this one. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw Danny Green here as well. He didn't play yesterday. I think they're just going to work through all of the extra guys. I don't think that we're actually going to be talking about anyone for Cleveland other than their main 4. Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, Allen. Everybody's pulling some ownership except for Mitchell, who's 9,700 today. Going to look a lot like Trae Young on the opposite side when we get there, but 20% ownership coming to Garland at 7,700, 15 to 20 coming into Mobley and Allen. Obviously, Mobley looked really good last night. Their prices have converged. Mobley was, I think, 8,100 or something along those lines yesterday. Very hard to get to, down to 7,300 today. How are you seeing this Cleveland team on the back-to-back?
Yeah, coming on back on the back, just keep an eye on the news. There could be someone resting potentially. I'd find it odd. They don't really rest guys on the back-to-back. It feels like maybe it's Mitchell, but he should be fine coming off an extended break here. But Mitchell, low on, we know he has tournament winning upside, 9.7 over there in DraftKings, 9.5 on FanDuel, shooting guard only over there. I think he's a better play over there. $37 on Yahoo seems very favorable for him. So pick your spots with Mitchell. We know his upside. He can certainly put up a number that matters. Darius Garland looks very appealing. I'd rather save the $2,000 on Garland over there on DraftKings 7,700, where you get the 3-point bonus. I like taking some chances there. And kind of like also just pivoting to Allen instead of Mobley. I know Allen's only center only. Allen had some foul trouble last night against Jokic. I certainly think he could bounce back tonight. 6,900 over there on DraftKings. It's probably Garland and Allen are my two favorite guys to go to here, followed by Mobley and Mitchell in DraftKings, but it's a different story on FanDuel. I think Evan Mobley looks like a much better play over there. And it's very site-specific yet again for this team. I think Mitchell looks like a better play than Garland, in my opinion, on FanDuel. And
I'm a little surprised to see the Mobley and Allen ownership. Feels a tad high to me in a game with a 225 total, but there's not a bunch of 230 plus totals today. So I guess I get it. You know, Charlotte and Minnesota is pretty high, but OKC, Phoenix is just creeping over that 230 mark. Houston, Golden State, Sacramento, and the Clippers are both in that 235 range. So it's not the big gap that you normally see where we get a couple high 230s, some low 240s. I guess I get it. And look, when it comes to Mobley and Allen, they're going to play 34 minutes barring any foul trouble. We know that there's no one taking their spot for any bit of the game.
Yeah, and you can make a case that, like, seeing this ownership on Mobley and Allen is probably one of the higher projected ownerships, like when the team's been fully healthy for this Cleveland team, right? Seems like night in, night out, this team comes in pretty under-owned across the board just because of like teams that's been fairly healthy throughout the season. Their main studs are been fairly healthy. So, yeah, it feels odd taking some chances on when Mobley and Allen are projected to be a bit higher owned than usual. But, you really want them to put up 40-plus fantasy points for you to win a tournament. Yep. They have that in the bag. At that ownership, like you said, seems pretty high.
Yeah, the only guy that I really got to from Cleveland was Garland in and around the public, but I'm very light on Mobley and Allen for right now. Maybe that'll change. If that ownership comes down just slightly throughout the day, I probably end up getting a little bit more.
Yeah,
Atlanta. Oh, go ahead.
No, and also I think Darius Garland deserves a big shout out. Sub $30 on Yahoo over there. Probably one of the higher owned players.
On the Atlanta side, we actually do have something to talk about here. John Collins is out. He is still in the concussion protocol. We saw him miss this past Monday. Well, not this past Monday, the 13th. He missed that game. And what that does, and what we're not seeing in the ownership here, which I think is very wrong, it sort of unlocks Bogdan Bogdanovic to almost be a guaranteed part of a closing lineup and not have any sort of barrier in front of him. I gave Bogdanovic 30 minutes today. He played 31 and a half in that game on Monday. They do have Sadiq Bey now, who they didn't unlock that day. I don't know if they're going to do that here. I think 6% owned Bogdan Bogdanovic is the most interesting play from Atlanta. I think DeJounte Murray looks very similar to Darius Garland on the opposite side. Comparable-ish price tags, picks up the extra positionality. I think Trae Young looks a lot like Donovan Mitchell on the opposite side. So you're getting these two guards with one with an MPE, one without it, but there's no real ownership coming into the Atlanta side. It just feels a little weird to me. Same for Clint Capella, 5,900. Why is he not getting any ownership in comparison to Allen and Mobley? I think Atlanta is just as a whole getting slept on.
Yeah, and also one thing to keep in mind on Atlanta did fire Nate McMillan over the All-Star break, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know if they've hired Quinn Snyder yet, but I think they've already been talking to him.
They are talking to him. It is Joe Prunty is the interim head coach.
The former Bucks head coach, right? He filled in for Jason Kidd once he got fired.
Joe Prunty was the last coach to take like an interim tag like that in the middle of a season with a team with a record like this. So it's the second time he's basically doing the exact same thing. And he knows he's just not going to be the coach for more than a day or two, basically.
Yeah. So keep it, not that if he's going to change up the rotation or anything. We knew Trae Young and Nate McMillan had their issues, and then Trae Young, I believe earlier this week was out for personal reasons, and I think he's supposed to play today. So I think
Yeah.
maybe this benefits Trae Young if he's more motivated to play for a new head coach. I'm just reading into psychology stuff here, but 9,600 for Trae, 98 over there on FanDuel. Similar to Donovan Mitchell, seem like very similar plays. And the team seems like a lot of carbon copy here. Like DeJounte Murray seems like a very similar play to Darius Garland yet again. Um, Capella seems pretty underowned in my opinion. He could put up a number that matters at 5,900. And like I agree with you, I think this without John Collins, I think Bogdanovich minutes could be the low 30s. And at 4,700, even in this spot, I really like getting above the field on a guy like him. I think taking some chances on those minutes and at that price tag makes a lot of sense.
I don't have much else to say from Atlanta here. I think the starters are kind of criminally underrated in this spot, and I don't have much else to say about anybody else.
Yeah, I think it's my guess is Bogdanovich would start, right? Or do you think a non-zero chance Sadiq Bey might get the starting nod by any means or no?
I wouldn't expect it to be Bay. On the 13th, they did make it Bay. I guess that it could be. He didn't close. They ended up closing with Bogdanovich. So I think Bay is live at 4,600 to start this game, but I think he's probably capped at like a 26 to 28 minute ceiling, at which point he looks good enough. Not any sort of priority. But if we're going based on what they did on the 13th, then they did start Sadiq Bey in that spot in his first game in Atlanta.
Okay. Yeah, just keep an eye on that starting lineup. And yet again, it's a new coach running the show. So and there's a guy missing. So the normal rotation is probably not going to happen this time around. But
we'll right. Like they have no allegiance to Sadiq Bey. So like that could be, they could want to start AJ Griffin. They could want to start Jalen Johnson. Like Joe Prunty can play this however he would like, or whoever's in Joe Prunty's ear. Schedule for the rest of the day. I will give you that once you hit the like button. 65 likes, not nearly enough. Let's run that number up. At 2 p.m., you will get the NHL strategy show. The NHL is now back to playing second fiddle to the NBA. They got their time in the sun for a week, but now they are gone. 3:30 p.m., we get the No House Advantage NBA show. The deeper dive is back at 5 p.m., potentially with Adam. Yeah. We'll see here. See if the penicillin kicks in. 6 p.m. NBA live before lock, and you'll go from 6 to 7:30. So just full slate. So it's going to be a good day of content. Plenty of pre-recorded content on the Stokastic channel, the Odds Shopper channel, our new golf channel as well, which you guys should be subscribing to. There's so much content coming out from Stokastic and the crew. You don't want to miss any of it. Make sure you're subscribing to all three. The Miami Heat, 1.5 point dogs in Milwaukee, 220 total. Normally, this game would be wildly uninteresting to me, but we have a couple talking points, unfortunately. Tyler Hero is in. Victor Oladipo is back. Kevin Love is in for Miami. Still no Kyle Lowry, no Jovic, no Yurtseven. They also signed Cody Zeller to a 10-day, but if they have to play Cody Zeller, something really bad happened to the Miami Heat. And the most owned guy on the Heat for right now is 18% owned Kevin Love, power forward, center eligible, flat 3K. How do you feel about it? Because I don't have a clue how to project this dude.
Yeah, neither do I, but seems like 3K Kevin Love is going to be part of our DFS night tonight. It's going to be interesting what Spoelstra does with his rotation. Like Kevin Love just fell out of the rotation in Cleveland, and I think he's going to be asked to play a significant portion of the front court minutes here in Orlando. Like, it wouldn't shock me if Love is consistently going to play around low 20s minutes on this Miami Heat team down the stretch here. And it's going to be really interesting to see if he's ever going to close for this team. He can certainly close with him and Bam in the front court, but unlikely that happens right off the bat. But he's 3K, and if Kevin Love's going to play around 20 minutes, he certainly has an upside. And right now, we haven't touched on a single player sub 4K leading up to this slate so far. We're going to need to play some low-owned cheap guys to get in some of the studs on this slate. So that ownership on Kevin Love might make a lot of sense. And it's really uncertain. We'll see what the field does and how that ownership evolves throughout the night. But I'm about that Kevin Love 3K. And he might be the only player that I'm interested in going to. Tyler Hero certainly has an upside with a 3-point bonus, but Bam and Butler seem priced appropriately here. And Kyle Lowry remains out, so take an eye on maybe you want to sprinkle in some Oladipo, but that feels gross.
Yeah, I didn't really get to much other than Hero at 7,300. Love is just a complicating factor. So I gave him 18 minutes. I basically booted Orlando Robinson from the rotation, put Kevin Love in as the backup center, and then gave him a couple minutes alongside Bam. But I think he's live to play upwards of, I don't know, 24, 25 minutes if he can handle it. They can cut, they're not afraid to cut this rotation to 8 dudes and get Haywood Highsmith the hell out of there or whatever other random dude you want to talk about. So I think there's a lot of upside for his minutes. I assume they don't have any problem integrating him quickly, but at the same time, he could literally just be a 12-minute backup center to start, and at which point you're not going to be happy that you had him.
Yeah, agreed. And I think he makes for someone that if I'm going to take a flyer on Kevin Love, it's got to be at 3K, right? Like,
yeah.
And this might be the cheapest we might get him all season.
He'll never be 3K again unless he's just simply not playing.
Agreed. And I did like the signing for this for him over there in Miami. I think they just needed another backup, big / a stretch 4 to fit in with this team. We'll see how this team goes down the stretch here, but they're right now the 7 or 8 seed, right? They've struggled like to win games in terms of like standings.
Yeah, they're not in a good spot, that's for sure. They are currently 7th at 32-27, but they are 3 losses ahead of Atlanta in the 8th seed. So they're very much in that play-in mix. Knicks are a half game ahead of them.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. No, this is we'll see how Miami reacts to this down the stretch here.
If you thought the Miami side was weird, it gets even weirder on the Milwaukee end. Doubtful tag on Pat Connaughton. Doubtful tag on Giannis. Chris Middleton is available. Jay Crowder is available finally. Bobby Portis is back. Wes Matthews is out. They signed Myers Leonard to a 10-day contract. I don't know what to do with that. 16% owned Chris Middleton is the high man on DraftKings for right now, and I think that makes some sense. I just don't have any idea how much he's going to play. Drew Holiday, I think, looks fantastic at 8,900, but because he is just a completely different player when Giannis isn't around. All these new guys being integrated, I think the key takeaway is that I don't really think any of them look all that good.
Interesting. I think I might disagree with you there. I know Middleton's minutes seem uncertainty, but I'm willing to take some chances at 6,300 Chris Middleton and getting well above the field there. He might be the only guy. I think Drew Holiday's priced appropriately around 9K with no Giannis.
Yeah.
And now with Middleton being in the picture, it's been a while, I think, that it's just been Drew Holiday and Middleton. Like, I don't think they've played many games with Giannis is out, and those two have been available this season. So it's I'd rather take the savings on Middleton. And right now, I have no idea why Javon Carter is getting around 30% over there on FanDuel. I don't want to touch that. I think I'd steer clear of that at this moment. And I think that ownership will drop by the time lock comes around. Middleton's strongly in play over there on Yahoo and on FanDuel. FanDuel 6K, and Drew Holiday comes in at $8,000 there. I think Holiday and Middleton are well worth your lineups tonight on FanDuel for sure. But yeah, I'm really curious why Carter is getting that much ownership on FanDuel. That doesn't make sense right now.
I don't get it at all. I have him as basically the biggest negative leverage play on the FanDuel side, and I just assume I assume he's like 10% owned by the time we get to lock. I don't think that's even remotely close. 3,800 is a nice price tag. Like, there's definitely minutes to go around with no Connaughton and with no Giannis, but I mean, I gave Carter 28 minutes and he's still just like, okay, that's a perfectly reasonable value option, but not the priority value option.
Yeah, and I want to touch with also on Connaughton being out. Another situation here, another trade deadline pickup in Jay Crowder, similar to the Josh Hart situation, where I think Jay Crowder's minutes could, as the season goes on, he could be playing 30-plus minutes. I think he kind of fits the Budenholzer system.
Yeah.
How do you feel about taking some chances on Crowder tonight, 5K and 4,800? Does it seem worth it? I just want to see how the minutes are now. Right now, we haven't projected for low 20s. I definitely think those could be a bit higher even tonight.
I got him in for 24. He's traditionally like a 0.85 fantasy point per minute guy. If I would have to give him 28 for him to even be in any sort of discussion, and I would be shocked if he just steps in and plays 28 minutes tonight. To me, pretty close to unplayable for today.
Okay. Yeah, the only reason why I bring it up is like because Constance's missing and Giannis is missing. I was wondering if those minutes could be a bit higher and we get less minutes from potentially Allen and Carter, and maybe Ingles minutes stay the same. But I was just curious to hear your take there with Crowder.
I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like the big rumor is that he's been keeping himself in like really good shape, whatever that means. But I also don't know if Milwaukee cares to like. He's also still Jay Crowder. Like he's a role player, so I don't know if it really matters if he wants to play 30 minutes or not. Certainly, Phoenix didn't care about it.
Yeah, they definitely didn't care about it. It was a really interesting situation how that ironed out.
It's very bizarre across the board. Anxious to somehow hear the truth whenever that ends up coming out.
Yeah. Well, it worked out for Phoenix just fine. They had Kevin Durant now. So
I think they're going to be okay with it. This next game's a wild one. The Charlotte Hornets are 7-point dogs in Minnesota, 240 total. Now, the Minnesota side of this one is a side that looks exceptional. But Charlotte's interesting if you want to get to a lot of Minnesota. The problem here, Terry Rozier is probable. He had missed the previous game before the All-Star break. Kelly Oubre is back. He's been out for months now. Cody Martin is still out. Bryce McGowan's had been playing. They sent him down to the G League, so he's basically, just getting replaced by Kelly Oubre at this point. And then it looks like Svi Mikhailiuk might be a part of this rotation a little bit, which is comical at best, but that's what happens when you go to a team that sucks. 10% ownership going to Ball and Rozier on DK. No real ownership coming anywhere else. I'd be happy to get to a little bit of Mark Williams if like the Cleveland guys are going to continue to get 15 to 20% ownership, but I don't see a true priority from Charlotte. But if I'm going to have a ton of Minnesota, I don't mind grabbing shares of, Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, PJ Washington, but LaMelo's 11K. Like that's a huge price tag.
Yeah, that is a massive price tag on LaMelo Ball. I think this might be the highest I've seen LaMelo Ball in his career.
Yeah.
And he's kind of earned it maybe, but that's really expensive for LaMelo Ball. And the team getting back other players like Oubre being back in the picture, that doesn't, I don't think, help him because I think Oubre certainly takes up some usage from LaMelo Ball. I think you can play Gordon Hayward and Mark Williams, as gross as that feels. I think on FanDuel, Gordon Hayward comes in at 5,600. Team's getting a lot more ownership on FanDuel. And I like going to Rozier on both sites. I think he might be my favorite Hornet to go to, and then Mark Williams falls right under him. But everyone else, I'm not that excited about. I think Mark Williams, if he can find a way to play 30-plus minutes more consistently, I'll be about it. But the Nick Richards thing is still there. I think it's more likely, I feel like they play 24-24 than it's 30-18 in Mark Williams' direction. But Mark Williams is a really good fantasy point per minute guy. So he makes things very interesting if he's going to play 30-plus minutes. And like you said, makes for a nice pivot off of Mobley and Allen, who we touched on earlier. So it's Mark Williams and then Rozier are the two guys who I'm looking at right
now. We can talk about the team that is likely the most popular on the slate, at least as of right now, because some of this pricing is just downright broken. And that's the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are at full strength other than Karl Anthony Towns, no Q tags or anything. 40% ownership going to Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, and basically Kyle Anderson. 20 going to Conley and Jaden McDaniels. Before we get into anybody else, let's just start with Edwards, who was like 10,500 or something 2 weeks ago. He's a shooting guard, small forward, $9,100 play today. He's in 40% of lineups. He is the third most owned guy on the slate. When I ran my dummy crunch today, I got 93%. To me, he is very easily the best play up that you can get to today. How do you see Edwards?
Yeah, it's a matchup against Charlotte. We know like teams playing Charlotte always are going to carry some ownership and carry that upside with it as well. Anthony Edwards certainly has that within him. I think Anthony Edwards is a great play across the board. Makes a lot of sense why he's getting that type of ownership. I think you can make a great case to get above that ownership with that type of price tag and upside he carries. And not just him. I think Gobert, Slow-Mo, and Conley as well. Conley less so. I think Slow-Mo and Gobert are much better plays than Conley, but it wouldn't shock me to match up against Charlotte. Conley can find a way to put up an offensive outcome. He just doesn't shoot the ball enough, right? It's just not in his game anymore. And he's definitely facilitating and finding the range for Anthony Edwards to get cooking makes a lot of sense. So I think Edwards, Gobert, and Slow-Mo are excellent plays in my opinion. Even if you want to sprinkle in some Jaden McDaniels, I wouldn't fault you in an up and down spot where McDaniels can pick up extra peripheral stats. He can find a way to pay off a $4,700 price tag pretty easily. 5,600 on FanDuel, a much different story, but it's the Anthony Edwards show here. I think makes for a strong play, and Gobert makes like a nice option as well. I hope Gobert is healthy. I was pretty sick and tired of that growing injury that was like really annoying. He was playing a game, didn't play the next, and I was like, yeah, this is so annoying because that was just like you would auto insert Naz Reid at any moment there. So I hope he's healthy. If you look at the Yahoo projected ownership, Gobert is projected right now for 80+%. Makes a lot of sense. If you want to lock in Gobert, go ahead. He's only $21.
Kyle Anderson is the other guy that I'm getting to a ton. 5,100. We saw in that final game before the All-Star break, played 31 minutes. So he finally got back to that like standard issue starter run that we had been seeing. I got him in for 30 today. He's much like Anthony Edwards. He's in almost everything that I'm doing. I am lighter on Gobert. And I think it's mostly just an ownership thing. 45% ownership is a massive number. And we see it every single day. We are inundated with centers at this point. They all exist. And it just doesn't feel like a spot where I want to lock into half of my lineups. Clearly a great play. Clearly a cash game center. There's no issue with it there, but we've named a lot of guys that I think are just in that area that are not all that different than Rudy Gobert, whether that's Jared Allen at 6,900, Evan Mobley at 73. We're going to talk about Şengün in a second, who I actually think looks better than Rudy Gobert. We could talk about that in a bit. DeAndre Ayton, Bam, Mark Williams, Nick Claxton, Capella, Mason Plumlee, who's probably starting for the Clippers today. There's just too many options for me to think that Rudy Gobert should be in 45% of lineups, no matter how good the matchup is against Charlotte. That said, I'm still going to have him. If you're playing a cash game, please get Rudy Gobert, but I wouldn't be surprised to see 45% become like 30 by the time we get to lock.
Yeah. And it's just that matchup against Charlotte, right? And the opportunity cost in center today, there's no Jokic, there's no Embiid. There is a Sabonis, and there is a Şengün. Şengün is kind of the opportunity cost center. He's been balling out with Mel Green and Kevin Porter Jr., but the opportunity cost of center is not that high. So I think the ownership makes sense. But in terms of tournaments, there's going to be some pivots that we'll be touching on. I think we touched on Allen and Mobley. And we didn't mention even Bam's name when we talked about Miami. Yeah. He certainly has an upside as
well. Well, folks, I agree with Jordan in chat. Hit that like button. Let's get up over that 100 mark. We should be at like 150 at this point, given how many people are here. But what we really need to do is talk about PrizePicks. They are the presenting sponsor of this show. I do a PrizePicks video 6 days a week, which you guys should be watching, because if you did, you would have tailed a 4-0 video yesterday. So don't miss it. It's on the Odds Shopper channel. If you want to sign up at PrizePicks, link in the description of this video, or Jordan will light it up in chat shortly. Head on over, make a deposit. They will match that deposit up to $100. So if you put in $100, they're going to give you 100. But if you put in 50, they're only going to give you 50. You're picking player props, taking over-unders. My recommendation, put together 5 on one card. You can net up to 10x your entry fee. But even if you get 4 right, you'll 2x. If you get 3 right, you still get some of your money back. You can do 6 picks. You'll get up to 25x your money if you hit them all. That's what you should be looking at. For now, Ryan and I are going to hit on a couple props that I'm picking out. They only have a few fantasy scores up right now. PrizePicks is FanDuel style scoring. 3 points for blocks, 3 points for steals. It's a full point for any turnovers. But how do you feel today about Julius Randle over under 43.5 fantasy points?
Julius Randle over 43.5 fantasy points, you said. And yes, I think that's a pretty good line, but I will take the over on Julius Randle. It's such like right now we have him projected at 43.5 on the dot. So it's a good line. And if I was playing, I'd probably dodge that line type of situation. But yeah, it's a good line. It feels odd. It feels odd to go one way or the other. For the sake of the segment, I'll go over.
Here's an interesting one that I think it's certainly not a name that we said, but a lot of minutes variability. Same game. Daniel Gafford, over under 21.5 fantasy points. This is a guy whose minutes have been all over the map as of late.
Yeah, that's all over the map. You said 21.5. That's another good line. I'll go with the over here.
I went to the over as well. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's a fantasy point per minute guy, which means that, you're hoping that Daniel Gafford plays north of 21 minutes or just has a good game. And I think it's more likely than not that he goes a little bit higher than that. But his most recent 2 games, 19 and a half minutes and 15 minutes. So it is at least a little scary. These are the type of things that we're hitting on for this video. We have plenty of PrizePicks content, both videos and behind the paywall, including potential opportunities to get packages for PrizePicks, where we just give you the odds of going over or under. You can just immediately look at a table, grab the picks, enter it to PrizePicks. It's going to take you 30 seconds. Check it all out.
Yeah.
Links are in the description, folks.
And also, I think we have that PrizePicks tool. That's pretty solid.
It is.
It can definitely boost that bankroll up in a hurry. So definitely take advantage.
I go through my projections. I write down everything that I like. I check the PrizePicks tool. Everything that's on the same side, that's where I start checking them off. And then all of a sudden, poof, I have a video that comes out.
Have you hit a 6Xer there?
I haven't even tried them. I've only been doing fives, and
sense.
I've hit 2 or 3 of those at this point, which
nice.
is helpful.
Oh yeah, I mean, these player prop contests have taken over in the last 15 months, right?
Yeah,
they're for the states that are not legalized. It makes a lot of sense to be playing here, and I personally think player props and these type of contests are much easier than DFS, where DFS stands right now.
Yeah.
And if I have friends who ask me they want to get in DFS, I tell them no. I say you should do this. I think it's that's kind of where we're at right now. And there are edges here, and you can definitely grind out a bankroll, not in a hurry, but steadily over time.
Yeah, look, props are going to be a 50-50 proposition, but the random person is probably going to take a beating in any sort of head-to-head double up 50-50 type contest. And GPPs, you're just not going, you're going to see many days in a row where you're not doing well. Or on PrizePicks, I mean, going 3-2, getting some of that money back, going 4-1 on a 5 pick and getting 2x your money. It's also going to feel a lot better too.
Yeah, it's and also the nice thing about these content, you set it and you're done. You don't have to worry about Ryan Arcidiacono starting. You don't got to worry about Keon Johnson not starting. So it is definitely has its perks in terms of lifestyle.
We keep it moving. Oklahoma City, 8-point dogs in Phoenix, 232 total. OKC is on a back-to-back. We do not have their injury report yet. I don't know how much that's going to matter. To me, there are basically 4.5 real plays from OKC. None of them really look all that good to me normally. Josh Giddey's price has come down a little bit for today, which is interesting. Lou Dort played 36 minutes yesterday. Wow. If you knew Lou Dort was going to play 36 minutes yesterday, or if you just want to say, if you knew Lou Dort was going to play 31 minutes yesterday, he would have been one of the most popular plays on the slate. We just hadn't seen it lately, but it appears he's going to be back to starter minutes. He's the one getting ownership, and I think that makes sense. Really hard for me, though, to prioritize anything from OKC, and I rarely do.
I'm just going to echo your statement there, and I think pretty much across the board here, no real interest on this OKC team. If you want to play Shea again, sure. Back end of a back-to-back. Different case scenario here against Phoenix, so not really about it. If Lou Dort becomes really popular on this slate, damn. I believe he was in the winning lineup last night on the DraftKings, 150K first. So I don't expect that similar type of fantasy production from Lou Dort tonight, but if he's going to play those 7 minutes, he certainly becomes probably the best value play on the OKC side of things on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it takes to make Oklahoma City look interesting. 5 extra minutes for Shea, Jalen Williams, Giddey, and Dort. When you can project those guys for an additional 4 to 5 fantasy points across the board, they're going to look pretty good. And I'm never going to end up with those guys in mass just because of the way that they're always priced and their consistency. But on days like yesterday, it's going to become very, very lucrative. On the opposite end for Phoenix, they're getting a little bit healthier here. Josh Okogie still in. Kevin Durant not here yet, but that return is imminent. Still no Landry Shamet. But the interesting piece here is that Cam Payne is questionable, and he has been out for a very long time. That will likely spell the end of any sort of Saban Lee backup run. They've barely used TJ Warren to this point. Booker, Paul, Ayton, and Okogie are all essentially 14% owned on DraftKings. A little bit less coming into Torrey Craig. I don't have much of a preference here. I think if I had to go anywhere, $8,700 Devin Booker stands out the most. Don't mind getting to Ayton. He's been great lately, but I think $8,700 Devin Booker here against OKC is underpriced.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I like going to Devin Booker at 8,700 on DraftKings. Different story over there on FanDuel. These guys are priced up quite a bit on FanDuel. All right, the Josh Okogie renaissance is something that I didn't expect this season. I was away in India and I saw this Josh Okogie box score and I thought this guy is like definitely on some sort of drugs. Like he was absolutely hooping and apparently the night he popped off, he was like 40% owned and I was like, I'm kind of happy I'm gone. I don't have to worry about playing a 40% Josh Okogie and absolutely nuking the slate. So, but he's been good. Yeah, there's the data backs it up that he's been a different player in terms of fantasy wise. So, if you want to play him, sure. I don't think I will, but it's really just Devin Booker for me. If you want to play DeAndre Ayton at 8,100 and against an OKC front court, go for it. I think getting around the field makes a lot of sense, but this team is not appealing on FanDuel whatsoever. I think I'll be well under the field over there. And this team's going to look very, very different. It's going to take a while for this team to price correct when Kevin Durant comes back. It's going to be really fun to see them play. I think it's a very intriguing fit for KD. I don't think it's a better fit than it was in Golden State. Like that was just like a match made in heaven. But it's up there. It's really good. I don't think this team is as good as the 16-17 Warriors, but they should be at least in the finals, like barring any injury.
I think it's going to be very important for them to get real minutes out of TJ Warren. If TJ Warren can even approximate what he had been, 2.5 years ago, getting a just wing guy is very important. And I think that's going to matter. You don't want to have to play Terrence Ross all that much. You don't want to play, no matter what Damian Lee looks like he is a backup. You don't want to have to play him too much. So I think Warren is the sort of the X factor for Phoenix. I can't wait till the playoffs.
Yeah, and my only concern with this team and why they might not make the playoffs is like it really helps. I apparently like training camp helps quite a bit for these teams, but when you're adding Kevin Durant, I think they should be just fine. And the only other team that I thought would have a chance to really match up with them might have been the Clippers, but they added Russ Westbrook, and I don't think that necessarily helps them. So
no, we'll get to that. We'll go to Kevin Durant's former team, the Brooklyn Nets, 1.5-point dogs in Chicago, 224 total. Brooklyn is just a complete new look team. I love them in general. I just like all the pieces they have together. I'm a big 3-and-D wing type guy, and I think they have all of them right now. Ben Simmons is questionable with life at this point. 12% owned Spencer Dinwiddie is the only guy pulling anything from an ownership perspective. I kind of think Brooklyn's getting slept on. I like matchups against Chicago all the time. I like Dinwiddie's usage in this situation, particularly at 7,200. So I'm quite a bit over the field on Dinwiddie, but I think Cam Johnson and Nick Claxton are at least worth a look at as GPP plays with no ownership.
Yeah, I like this Brooklyn team as well. Also for like basketball, from the basketball perspective as well. I think it's worth taking some chances at Claxton at 6,400. I think it's a pretty solid price tag. I think he's going to be able to man whatever minutes he can if he gets any foul trouble against Vooch on the other side of things. But it's an interchangeable 3-and-D team across the board, right? Like I think you feel confident that Mikal Bridges and Dinwiddie are going to lead the team in usage on most nights. And then Cam Johnson, you really want him to be able to knock down those threes at 5,200 where you get that 3-point bonus. So I like going to Dinwiddie. I like Claxton. And then it's Cam Johnson. And then Mikal Bridges kind of falls at 7,400. Maybe he's for real and he's going to be having that high usage. I believe he dropped like 43 in his Brooklyn debut or something ridiculous like that.
He went absolutely insane.
He played like KD, right? And that's apparently that was like the thing.
I mean, more or less, yes. He just had an absolutely, truly if that's in him, good for him. But yeah, 45 points, 8 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. He was 7-7 from the line, cooking in the mid-range, just a massive game. Probably the best game of his career, if I had to guess.
Probably, yeah. He had some really big games, I think, in the conference finals against the Clippers. But yeah, he's a stud. I think they're really fortunate they got him in the trade. I don't think the trade happens if he's not thrown in there, but I think this team has it in them to win around in the playoffs. I think just because They play great defense. They can hit free throws. I think those are really good starting points, but we'll see who their first round matchup will be. I like this Brooklyn Nets team, but in terms of DFS tonight, it's going to be Claxton, Dinwiddie, and then Cam Johnson on DraftKings.
Yeah, the only problem for them is that they're kind of locked out of getting any higher. I don't think that they're going to catch Cleveland for the 4 seed. Like right now, they're set up to play Cleveland 4-5. I think they match up pretty well. Like they can very easily defend. Nobody's going to be able to throw better defenders at Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell than the Brooklyn Nets. As weird as that sounds. I don't know if they're going to have enough offensive firepower to really keep up, though. They're a guy short.
I think so. And this Ben Simmons enigma is like something he has shown flashes, and then he's like comes completely like he's like you said, questionable with life. Man, I want him to play. I want him to be good because like when Ben Simmons was elite, he was really fucking good. So
yeah,
it sucks. It sucks to see someone fall like that.
It really does. I know people just hate him, but like. I mean, it's a shame. He was incredible. He was really, really, really good. And now he is just, if you told me that he never came back after the end of this season, that's I would totally believe that.
For sure. And on the other side of things, I mean, like when your coach is just publicly dogging you after a post game, probably doesn't help.
No, not so much. But like, it's
I think the best case scenario for him would have been to get traded like immediately, not to sit out that year.
Yeah. Although, like, you know, it seems like the injury to his back was 100% legitimate. And at that point in time, I don't know. It's all just really weird. It's a shame.
Bad gaming chair. That's probably what it led to it.
On the opposite side, we have the Chicago Bulls. I don't know what the Bulls are doing in life. DeRozan's back. Caruso's back. Derek Jones is back. They signed Terry Taylor. Goran Dragic is questionable. Javonte Green's still out. And then the big one, Pat Bev, welcome back to Chicago. They definitely needed to get another point guard with Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White and Goran Dragic and Caruso to a degree. They're just inundated with the exact same guys. There's no ownership coming into this team. I'm a little surprised. I love DeRozan today. 7,800. Clearly, Brooklyn has the wing defenders to match up here, but 8% owned DeRozan in a GPP. I'm just always going to be interested in that at a sub 8K price tag. And he doesn't have one of those stupid positions. He actually has an MPE for today.
Yeah, he's got small forward, power forward eligibility. Yeah, sub 8K DeRozan signed me up well above the field on a guy like DeMar DeRozan. And yeah, Pat Bev coming home. Really, Pat Bev was like a high school legend in Chicago in the hood. Like he was like one of the best high school players to come out of Chicago. But and he went to like Arkansas, I believe. Like he's like the best player to come out of Arkansas since Joe Johnson. It's my guess. But I don't know what those minutes in the backcourt look like. He's probably going to eat into Caruso, White, and Dosunmu. It wouldn't shock me if Pat Bev starts, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm thinking he probably comes off the bench to start. It'll probably be Dosunmu, Levine, DeRozan, Williams. Like I think they keep their starting lineup, but I mean he's live to work his way into it. If things start going well, at least.
Yeah, it was interesting. It would have been fun to see him in Golden State. I just would have liked him to be in the Western Conference, like kind of just Pat Bev being the character he is.
I hate him, so I hope he fails in everything that he does.
He is very annoying. He is like obviously very annoying, but he had some iconic moments with the Lakers. I did think that camera in the Boston game was hilarious.
That's funny to me. I just like his sissy nature of like pushing Chris Paul from behind and stuff. I have no.
Oh yeah, that's like,
if you're gonna be a tough guy, be a tough guy. If you're going to be a fake tough guy, people are gonna see through it pretty quickly. But the camera shit was funny.
Yeah. It was weird. I was like, why Chicago out of all places? Like, I felt like he could have been better off somewhere like hell, even like Milwaukee or something. I don't know. I guess teams just didn't want him.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of teams, I assume, just don't want him around at all. He does tend to burn some bridges.
John Wall is not going to play, right? He's not going to get bought out yet.
Did he get bought out yet?
No, I don't know. I don't know where he would go.
I mean,
was he really that bad this season? I didn't think he was that bad to like.
He is. Houston waived him. He is not on a team at all. He didn't even get bought out. They just were like, nah, we're good.
So yeah, we'll see where he ends up. I do think someone will pick him up. Someone will have to take a chance on him, but I'm not sure.
Unless there's an injury, I don't think anybody's going to care. He hasn't been good in 5 years.
That's fair.
Anything else for Chicago? I don't really have much else to like. We know how to talk about the Bulls.
Yeah, and I mean, we know Levine and Vooch have tournament upside, but Vooch at 9,400, that's way too expensive. 88 on FanDuel, way too expensive. Rather take my chances on Levine. That's really about it.
Ready to talk about a really ridiculous situation?
Yeah, let's do it.
The Houston Rockets are 10-point dogs in Golden State, 235 total. Rockets are going to be without Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green. And that creates a really interesting dynamic because we don't really know who's going to start at the point guard spot for Houston. But we do know there's a lot of ownership coming into this team because most of these guys are free. 22% ownership coming to Şengün, who I think is underpriced for what he's going to be doing today. 20% coming to KJ Martin, Kenyon Martin Jr., whatever name this guy's going by. It's different in every place. It's 15% ownership to Jae'Sean Tate. 50% ownership coming into Josh Christopher right now, $3,300 shooting guard, small forward. Another 12 to Ty Washington. 26% ownership coming into Tari Eason. It's either Minnesota or Houston today in terms of guys that are getting the most ownership. I've got a lot of interest in different things here for the Rockets. Start wherever you would like. They're a really interesting team to talk about.
Yeah, I'm all about the Şengün, getting above the ownership on Şengün. I think he's an outstanding play at 7,500 on both sides. I think he looks outstanding, even at $27 on Yahoo. Now, the rest of the situation here, it's very interesting on how this is going to play out. Josh Christopher is getting a lot of ownership right now, but
yeah,
it wouldn't shock me if Ty Washington gets the start. I wouldn't shock me at all. And I think I'll be very interested to take some chances on Ty Washington if he starts. He's also sub 3K. We just haven't touched on many guys sub 4K on the slate, and we're nearing the end of it. So keep an eye on who's starting here. I like getting above the field on Ty Washington regardless. In Josh Christopher, that ownership is high. I don't know if I'll get up that high, but if he starts, it'll tough not to love him at that price tag. But it's Şengün and then the backcourt situation in Washington and Christopher. And then it's mixing and matching the rest of the guys. I don't think I want to get to that much KJ Martin, but he has an upside if he's going to play mid-30s minutes. I'd rather take the savings on a guy like Tari Eason than KJ Martin potentially. And it's difficult. I just don't know what the rotation is going to look like at this moment. I haven't mentioned Jae'Sean Tate's name, and if he's going to find a way to play 30-plus minutes, he certainly can because this team's pretty shorthanded. He looks great at 4,100 if he somehow plays 30-plus minutes. I just don't know if he's that guy who's going to get up to that many minutes.
We didn't even mention it. Like, I think Daishin Nix is live to start this game, but not really be like an interesting part of it. I don't think he's any good. Even if he's starting, like, I'm not all that interested in him. I think it just sort of hurts Christopher and Washington by not starting in those scenarios. The guy that I think is really interesting that maybe I'm crazy. I don't know why he's not pulling any ownership. I assume it's a name thing and maybe I'm just not pulling it in. So now that I'm saying that out loud, let me just check. No, we just don't have him projected for any ownership. I really like Jabari Smith, 5,800, power forward only, unowned, which I think is wildly broken. This is a guy that sees a pretty big usage bump with those guys off the floor. And as their resident highest pick that's going to be on the floor, I assume he's going to let it rip today. So this is a guy that's already a firm part of the rotation, playing 33 minutes a night prior to everything. Now there's no Eric Gordon. There's no Jalen Green. There's no Kevin Porter Jr. Like, in theory, this is Jabari Smith and Alperen Şengün's team. And if Jabari Smith is somehow literally unowned, he's my favorite GPP play of the day.
Yes, and I completely missed that situation. He's unowned, and I think Jabari Smith should be the guy playing 30-plus minutes in this situation, and I'll love him. I think he'll be one guy who I'm going to be well above the field on if this ownership holds up. My guess, he obviously is going to start. I think we feel pretty good about KJ Martin, Jabari Smith, and Şengün starting, and the rest is kind of up for grabs, right? You think it could be a combination of Knicks, Tate, Washington, and Christopher, right? The last remaining two spots.
Yeah, my guess is it's Şengün, Smith, Martin, Tate, ? And I think any one of Christopher, Washington, or Knicks can start here.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm leaning Knicks. That doesn't make me not like Christopher or Washington. Like Josh Christopher showed up at the top of my sims this morning when I ran them right after the process show. But if either Christopher or Washington start, particularly Josh Christopher, then that 50% ownership is 100% justified. He's probably the best play on the slate just because he's going to get, 26, 28, upwards of 30 minutes in a competitive matchup. He's going to be the best per minute guy. He's going to have the best positionality and price tag. I'm going to try to keep it simple, though, and get to the guys that I totally trust for right now. And that's going to be someone like Şengün, who's my version of Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I think those two probably my two highest owned centers, the way things go. It's kind of chalky, but chalk is justifiable in this situation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love for Ty Washington to start. He's one of those Calipari Kentucky guards who can just get a bucket.
Yep.
So, and don't be afraid to go to Ty Washington in significant fashion if you were to start. So,
yeah, whoever starts at point guard today for Houston is at least at the minimum mildly interesting and potentially like lock button type plays. It's crazy. On the Warriors side of this one, no Andrew Wiggins, who is still out for personal reasons. He missed before the All-Star break for personal reasons. So whatever's going on in Andrew Wiggins' life is clearly not good. You don't miss a week and a half of personal stuff for positive things. Like if he had a baby, they would just say he had a baby. So yeah. With no news out, I have to assume that this is not good. Steph Curry still out. Gary Payton out. Andre Iguodala out. We don't know if anything's going to be different. They are on a back-to-back, but allegedly Klay Thompson is just playing back-to-backs now. 24% ownership coming into Jonathan Kuminga at 4,200. He started last night, which blew my mind. That seemed like the perfect opportunity to start Kevon Looney. Not true, evidently. So assuming they're not starting Looney here, I don't mind the Kuminga ownership. Makes some sense to me. Good flexibility, 4,200. But I don't see a lot to like from Golden State. These guys are all sort of priced as they should be, but they did bring Jordan Poole's price down a bit from yesterday.
They did bring his price down, and I think we can certainly go back to Jordan Poole at 8,300 across the board on both sides. I think he looks outstanding even at 31. I like even going to Klay. I know it's a back-to-back. He's going to be playing them. He certainly can put up a huge performance against Houston. So Draymond Green, a triple-double upside for sure against the Houston matchup. This Golden State team is not getting much ownership, but I think I'm going to be well above the field. We'll see if Kuminga starts again. Kevon Looney, last night I was watching the game, he was just – they played so much better when Looney's on the floor compared to Kuminga. And
he's good.
Looney's good. And I don't know. Keep an eye if I'm not for sure if Kuminga is going to start again. So I'm very skeptical with that Kuminga ownership, but it's $4,200. You can certainly get a significant run off the bench and find a way to pay off that price tag. It is against Houston. That's why I'm kind of seesawing back and forth with that situation there. But this team across the board looks outstanding. I think they're coming in low owned, and I want to get above the field on them. Kuminga is getting a huge ownership over there on FanDuel at 44%. So that's buyer beware, I guess.
I have nothing else to say here for Golden State.
Yeah, an excellent tournament team from top to bottom.
Yes, that I agree with. Let's close this out. Final game here. Hit that like button, folks. 570 of you guys in the house. I know PrizePicks would like it if you hit the thumbs up. So would the rest of the folks at Stokastic. We got plenty of content coming up for the rest of the day to make sure you don't miss that deeper dive in live before lock once we get a little bit more news for today. But for now, the Sacramento Kings are 6.5-point dogs in LA, taking on the Clippers. Kings on a back-to-back. Kings are sort of like the Knicks in that projecting their rotation is about as easy as it gets. They really don't deviate. They're in a really not great matchup for them. There's no ownership coming in here. Sabonis is 9,900. That's a great price. It's 5% owned. It's not. I just don't find anything to be all that interesting from Sacramento. But at the same time, any shares I get of their starters are totally okay with me.
Yeah, the Sacramento team just sits at the 3 seed in the West. It's been an impressive regular season so far for them. But in terms of DFS tonight, no real interest. Even it's a Harrison Barnes over there on FanDuel, 4,600. If you can find a way to high 20s fantasy points, I think you'll be okay with it. You really want 30, but this team kind of just getting brushed by the wayside here. Not real interest, no real interest for me to get anything significant above the field. I think the ownership is appropriate. Their price tags are appropriate. They're on the back in the back to back. Unlikely anyone sits. So I think just kind of like they're good tournament options. That's really about it.
And then we get to the Clippers, the real team that we need to talk about here. So obviously they made some noise during the trade deadline. John Wall is gone. Reggie Jackson is gone. Eric Gordon is here. Mason Plumlee is here. Bones Highland is here. And now Russell Westbrook is allegedly the starting point guard for the Clippers. And let me be the 100th person to say that is a terrible idea for the Los Angeles Clippers. But we got to play the Clippers today. And I think we kind of need to play them a lot. One, facing the Kings is great. Fast-paced matchup. Defense sucks. I like Sabonis a lot, but defense is not his strong suit. For some strange reason, Kawhi Leonard is 9,200. And for an even stranger reason, Paul George is an $8,200 shooting guard small forward. The fact that he's 15% owned is even crazier to me. Marcus Morris is 3,800 today as a power forward. And there's no Ivica Zubac. He's out for today. I assume we're going to get Mason Plumlee starting and playing the Ivica Zubac role. He's 5,100. I think Mason Plumlee might be the person getting slept on the most for today's slate. I really like the Clippers here, and I don't want to.
Yeah, I also like the Clippers here. And Mason Plumlee is probably going to get the start. Zubac is out, so he's comes in at 5,100. Looks like a decent option at the center spot. We haven't touched on many centers. He might be low owned. They're going to need his minutes against the bonus. So I think he makes like for a pretty solid center option. But if you're saying Westbrook's going to start, and I love Paul George at 8,200. Last time Russ and PG played together, PG had an MVP season. That was like 5 years ago, but I do think Paul George was really pushing for the Westbrook signing. He was pretty vocal about it as well. So we'll see. And if Westbrook is going to start, call me crazy. He might be one of my favorite plays on the slate. If he finds a way to play 30-plus minutes, sign me up against Sacramento. $27 on Yahoo, 71 on DK, 72 on FanDuel. If there's a time I'm going to take my chances on Russ Westbrook, it's got to be tonight. And if it burns me, if he gets benched, it wouldn't be the first time I've gotten burned by someone at that price tag. So I want to take some chances with Russ. It's going to be tonight. I like Paul George, Russ, and Plumlee in that order. I think that's like how I like them. Even I think PG and Russ look like solid plays on FanDuel. Kawhi's kind of priced out. He's going to lose a lot of usage to Russ if he's going to start. So we're going to need that price to correct on Kawhi in the coming weeks. But it wouldn't shock me if Kawhi can put up a performance against the Kings. But it's going to be the PG and Rush show for tonight, in my opinion, for DFS.
I think Russ is going to burn you the same way Adam's getting burnt from whatever he grabbed in Savannah.
Oh, boy. I certainly hope not. I hope Russ takes me to the top.
Oh, if he's taking usage away from Kawhi Leonard, they need to fire him directly into the sun tonight.
He certainly is, right? Like,
oh yeah, he is going to. I agree with that. He just shouldn't.
Yeah.
This is so bad. This is such a disaster. If you wanted to play a shitty point guard who only thinks of themselves, just keep John Wall.
I think that's certainly one thing to say, but I'm intrigued by this fit. And I constantly give Russ the benefit of the doubt, but I've kind of got sick and tired of it like towards the end of last year, but we'll see. I hope it works out. It'll be great if it works out for this team.
I mean, I think Houston wanted it to work out for them, and Washington wanted it to work out for them, and the Lakers wanted it to work. The ship sailed. He's a 34-year-old gunner that can't make a bucket and doesn't play defense. This is awful. Awful. Paul George, Steve Ballmer should have went to Paul George and be like, hey, I appreciate you wanting to bring Russ in, but don't ever give me a suggestion again, because this is a crime.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Ballmer doesn't care. I think he's win or lose. I think that guy's chilling, man. He's like the richest owner in sports.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad. Although I I saw yesterday, I think it was on ESPN, that Bezos is looking at Washington for the Commanders. I almost called them the real word.
Oh, that's good. Oh yeah, I mean, I think that Washington franchise could use Bezos as their owner.
That would be awesome, because I bet he would be just an absolute crazy person for it. So sign me up for that. He'd be like having them train in space and shit.
we're definitely entering like a new era of ownership. Like a lot of the old heads are like moving out and selling their teams. So we'll see how that goes.
Anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here?
Take some chances on Russ. I think if he starts, take some chances on him. I think well worth it. Keep an eye on the Houston backcourt starting lineup. But should be another fun slate.
There you have it, everybody. Hit that like button on the way out the door. Thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. Keep your eyes peeled to the rest of the content that we put out for today and for the rest of the weekend, for the rest of the season, across every sport. We're just constantly doing stuff. You guys don't want to miss it. Good luck to everybody tonight. Talk to you again later. Peace.